Hello everybody, this is Petey from BurgZerg at BurgZerg.net, and today we're going to take a look at how to create custom inspector editors. Now, this isn't directly tied to our item system series, but it is something that is quite related to it. So let's go ahead, we'll jump into Unity and take a look here. I've gone ahead and created this database here. Let's call it alignment, and I've added two elements to it. And those elements contain a name and a color. Let's go ahead and take a look at the script for the database. So there should be nothing new here for you. We've gone ahead, I've encompassed everything in a namespace, but it's really just a serializable scriptable object called alignment database. And inside, I've gone ahead and just made a public list of alignments. And of course, alignments just has two variables I'm going to keep track of here, the alignment name and the background color. I assigned some default values to them, and that's it. We'll jump back into Unity real quick here. Now, some of the things I want my custom editor to do for me is I want a way to be able just to click a button and add a new element to it instead of coming up here going, okay, I want to create, I don't know, two more. And I'm just going to call it, I don't know, Revan. And we'll give it a color of gray. We'll call this one, I don't know, Ooga Booga. Let's make this one a green. And then if I come in and it's like, I don't want Revan anymore. I want to be able to just delete that one from the element. Now we can right click on it and delete array element. We can also duplicate it, as you can see here. But I would like a more visual way to do it. And we can actually take care of that with our custom editor. So let's go ahead and we'll create one. So I'm going to come down to my scripts folder and I'm going to create a new folder called editor. And as we've looked at before, the editor folder, any scripts that you put, actually anything you put into the editor folder will not be compiled up into your final build of whatever application is you're making and shipped out. All the resources that you put in here are only available to you while you're actually in the Unity editor. So we'll jump in. I'm going to make a new script. Now you can call it whatever you want, but as a general rule of thumb, I like to put custom at the beginning. Then whatever it is I'm going to be customizing, in this case, it's going to be alignment database. And then I'm going to write inspector at the end. And yes, it makes a long name, but when I come back 3 months from now, I'm going to know what that is. So as a general rule, whatever class we're going to be changing the view of in the inspector, I put custom in front, inspector at the end. Name it however you want. That's how I do it. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And the first thing I want to do is go ahead and get rid of everything that's in here. I do want to put it in my namespace, but I'll do that later as it's not important for this video. But my OCD is kicking in, so I'm going to do it anyway. And the way I like to organize it is I'm going to copy the namespace there. I'll paste it in. There we go. We'll tab in the class. And then I like to make an editors extension on the namespace. Now keep in mind that if you call it editor, you're going to get an error. It's going to clash with Unity. So just call it editors or call it whatever you want if you're going to use namespaces at all. Now down here, we're not going to be inheriting from mono behavior. We're going to be inheriting from editor. Not editors, just editor. And before we can gain access to that, we have to come up here and we're not going to be using that. Let's add using Unity editor. And there we go. We're almost ready to get started. All we have to do now is come up here and add the attribute, custom editor. And just like all the other attributes, we have a type of. And then inside of here, you're just going to say what script this is going to be the custom editor for. And this will be the alignment database. So quick refresher, this is just going to change the look in the inspector for this script or this component that we're going to be adding to. We'll save it off. We're going to come down in here. Now, all of the editors have a variable that you can use to get the particular instance of that script we're working on. And this is called target. So what I like to do right off the bat is go ahead, say alignment database, the type that we're actually using. And I'm just going to call it DB. It's going to be equal to target. Oh, sorry. No, it isn't. It's not going to be equal to anything. We're going to take care of this in the on enable. Now this is fired off when the script is first loaded. So when you first click on that particular element in your assets folder down here, when you first click on, let's say like this database, that's when the on enable is going to be fired. I've seen some people for some reason stick it in something like an update, and you don't really want it there because you don't need to keep getting a reference to it. Okay, now back in unenable, we're just going to say db is equal to alignment. Oh, sorry, is equal to target. But we do have to typecast this. So alignment database is the type we want. Let's go ahead. We're going to save this. We'll come back into Unity. And okay, we're assigning it. We're not using it. That's fine. Let's go ahead. We'll click on our database. Take a look here. Nothing special has happened. Well, there's a function that we have to use in order to actually start doing stuff with it. Right now, we're just going ahead and getting the instance of the database that we want to play with. Let's actually start playing with it. Now, the function for that, I'm going to make it public. I always make them public. I've never actually thought if I actually need these as public or not, but I've always made them public. But we're going to go ahead and take this method, the onInspector GUI, and we're going to go ahead and override it. And I'm horrible at spelling these out sometimes, or just remembering exactly which ones they are. I really wish that there was some sort of auto-completion on these. All right, and if we come in here, I'm just going to throw out a GUI layout.label. And inside this label, I'm just going to say, we did it. Let's go ahead, we'll save this off, jump back into Unity. Let's go ahead, we'll fix any errors we have. And it looks like I spelt it wrong. onInspector GUO. Okay, let's do GUI. And capitals. We'll go ahead, we'll save that off, jump back in, wait for our error to disappear, and boom. We notice everything's disappeared from our database. We have other databases here. But all we have up here is the label, so great and not great. One thing I want to do while we're working with this is come down here at the very bottom and call the base onInspector GUI. And this will display what it looks like by default. And I like to keep this while I'm working on it down at the bottom, just to make sure that I'm not missing out on anything. So we got our label. And then we got the default, what shows up. Let's go ahead and put a little bit of spacing in here just so it looks a little bit better. I believe there was a space, right? Yeah. Instead of space in the current layout, and I believe this is the height. So we'll just do 20 for now. And that should give it a little 20 pixel buffer right here for us. There we go. So this is what we're going to work on up here. And then down here is just the default layout. So let's go ahead, we'll start off. Let's add a count up here so we know exactly how many entries we have. That's pretty easy. So I'll come up here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. Well, we don't actually have to get rid of it. We can just go ahead and modify it. db dot. Now, remember db is just getting a reference to the database itself, but we still have to get a reference to the alignments here. Alignments dot count. And let's actually add a string in front of this too, just so we know what this number means. Total alignments. We'll save that off. We'll jump right back in. And when it updates, great. We're going ahead and grab the alignments. If we did go ahead and add another one here, we see that it updates automatically. Let's go ahead and add a button here as well to allow us to add something. We can do that. So I'm going to come down to the next line. And I always like to do the button code first before I put the if statement in. I'm not sure why, I just do. So I'm just going to use a layout button. And inside of here, I'm just going to say add alignment. And now I'll do my if. I'm not sure why I do this. I just do. And I'm going to go ahead and just call off another function when I do it. And I'll make this function down here. And I'll just call it add alignment. And in here, I'm just going to throw out a debug message for now. And we'll just say add. Keep it nice and short. We'll come back here, finish this off. Add alignment. Go ahead, we'll save this off there. We'll jump back in, let it refresh. We should get a button. There we go. So when we click it, we are getting the add. Let's add the code for that. And we can get really fancy here, maybe make some sort of pop-up modal window or something like that. We've played with modal windows in previous examples. And just to keep this short, we're just going to add directly to the database. So of course, to get that, we say database.alignments.add. And all I'm going to add in there is a new alignment. Now, like I said, we could get fancy, make some sort of modal window with a bunch of error checking and everything else. I just want this to be super simple. Jump back in, of course, we'll let it refresh. And now when we click it, we get a new one. And of course, we get the default values for it. And by default, whatever it is you have, I had them open before, it'll show that way. But I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. So I'm going to go back down to 2. After we've done this here, let's go ahead and let's change the way this looks as well. I want to have a list of the alignments, but the way I want it is to have a text field for the name. Then we can use this color picker. And then maybe an X at the end to click it, have a modal window pop up. You know, like, are you sure you want to delete this alignment? And again, we've done modal windows before. Just keep it simple. I'm just going to, you click the X, it deletes it. It's a pretty simple little database. But yeah, let's work on that next. So text field, color box, and another button. So I'm going to jump back into my code here, right up here. And I'm going to need a remove method. Since I'm down here, I'll do it next. I'll do that first. Remove alignment. And let's try to spell it right. And I guess it's just a little late. For some reason, the word's not looking right to me, but that's fine. Auto completion for the win. So in order to go ahead and get all of those entries we already have, I'm just going to go ahead and use a for loop. And we've done this a million times, so it shouldn't be that new to you. And we're going to iterate through. We'll have to grab the database that we're working with. We're going to grab the alignments. And we want to go less than the count. Increase our counter. And there's a few things we want to do here. Since I want them to be, instead of one after the other, I want it to be all in one row. We're going to use a little bit of GUI code here just to format the layout a bit. This is what makes it so powerful for the inspector. So again, name, color picker, X. Let's change this. I'm used to my code being there, so when I switch, all right, OCD, I know. So GUI layout dot horizontal, begin horizontal. And I'm not going to use anything special like a box or anything like that. And of course, when you start one, I like to make sure I get the end in there right away. And in here, all I'm going to do is go ahead and get the name that we have assigned and put it into, well, a GUI layout text field. So, well, we need the GUI first. Text field. We'll get the db.alignments, the counter we're on, and the alignment name. And one extra thing I'm going to do here is assign a width, a default width for everything. Simply because since I've done stuff like this before, I know that when you have a list of names, not all the names are going to be the same length. So you're going to have that color picker moving side to side. And I don't want that. I want them to all be lined up nicely in columns. Now, of course, if we want to be able to edit what's actually being displayed as well, we have to assign it back into the database as well. There we go. So if we jump back in, we got an error. Let's see if it goes away. There we go. Come on. Fingers just won't work today. That's fine. All right, we'll let that go. We got a couple other errors here to fix up. And what do I do here? DB alignments, the counter, .alignment name is equal to GUI layout text field, the name. Oh, the width actually requires how wide we want to make it. And I'm going to start off with 100. Save that off, come back in. There we go. So as we see here, they're both 100 in width. And if, well, these here are actually pretty similar in length. If I would have had one that was like a little bit longer, let's say it went up to here, is twice as long. When I started my color field, they wouldn't line up as well. And I want to make sure they do. Now, of course, as we change these, if we watch down here, they're automatically synced with the database. So as you change them, everything's updated in real time. So let's add these color fields next. Jump back into Unity. We'll go to the very next line. And just like before, we're going to go ahead and grab the instance in the database, except this time I want the background color. And I'm going to assign this to the GUI layout dot. Actually, the color field is in the editor GUI layout. Dot color field. And I want to paste it into, or what I want to display is the background color. So it works just like the text. We're just changing what property we're playing with. And these are always the same length, so I don't have to set a default for it. Go ahead, add our semicolon there. We'll jump back in, take a look at that. Once it refreshes, there we go. And of course, they are synced just like the other one. So as we move stuff around, we see that everything is synced up for us perfectly. The only thing left to do now is to add that little delete button that we want at the end here. So let's do that next. We've already got code here for a button, so I'm just going to copy that. Put it down here. I like to leave spaces when I have like a begin horizontal and an end. I know some people have even gone as far as to tab it in as well. And depending how much I have as far as beginning and ending of the GUI stuff, I have tabbed it in before. I've even gone ahead and just created methods and just called them methods because it can get pretty messy. And it's very important when you start adding a lot of these begins and ends that you have them matching up. But let's go ahead. We'll add a button. I'm just going to display an X. And instead of calling add alignment, I'm going to call remove alignment. And we are actually going to have to pass something in. We're going to have to pass in CNT, the count that we're currently on, which means down here, we're going to have to take in a variable. And I'm just going to call it index. And then in here, we'll say db.alignments.remove at, which takes an integer. And I am going to add the index. We're going to go ahead and save this off. And there is one other thing I want to do up here. If you were to leave it like this and you were to click the X on something in the middle, you could get an error because when it goes to go to the next one, since we're using integers to iterate through, the count isn't going to be the same length. So what I like to do is, at least for the rest of this frame, skip it and come back after. So every time I remove it, it doesn't draw the rest for that frame. But since you're running at what, at least in the editor, I'm not really sure how fast how many frames a second you get in the editor, but you get quite a few, so you're not even going to visually notice it. And it's just a quick and easy way to do that. All right, so we'll save that off. I'm not going to get too fancy with the styling. I'm going to let you style the way you want. Let's check this out. I did not. Stubbed my little circle. So we'll go ahead, we'll save, jump back in. I've got my little X's. Let's add one. Call it whatever you want. Of course, you can come up here, change the color. And when you're done with it, you can just delete it. Let's go ahead and add two. We'll make this one the green one. And of course, these are down here. And if I don't want this gray one anymore, I can go ahead and delete the one that's in the middle. And let's actually go ahead and hide the default way it displays, which is all down here. I'm going to get rid of the spacing as well. I'm just going to comment it out. There's no point in getting rid of it just yet. And we can go a few extra steps. Let's do a little bit of extra styling. As far as functionality goes, you should see how we can go ahead and customize the look of this and the functionality for the way that you want. Let's go ahead and change the look a little bit, because I am going to be using this for the app that I am making. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to use another begin horizontal, which means down here I'll need an end horizontal. I'm going to add a little bit of space here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. We'll put it under here. 20 is probably fine. I'll start with 20. I'm going to give this a default style of box, one I use quite a bit. And with just that, if we come back in, I did save, right? Yeah. And we come back in. I've got this nice little box here with everything. And I want to change this a bit too. I want to add a little bit more padding around the edges. So I'm going to go in and take this horizontal. I'm going to copy it, come up here, switch it to an actual vertical. So I'm going to have my horizontal spacing inside of a vertical. Vertical. And we won't have a box inside of a box. So copy that, come down here where we're ending horizontal. I'm going to go ahead, make sure it lines up. This is one of the things where I was talking about where if you wanted to start having things tabbed in, it might make sense. I'm only going to have the 2, so I'm not too worried about it. But we don't take a parameter in here. And I'm going to use some magic numbers for all the spacing. But I do want some spacing on the horizontal and the vertical. But for here, for the vertical spacing, I just want 5, not 54. 5 would be good. There we go. And that'll take the top and bottom. And I want a little bit of spacing from the left and right as well. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll do twice as much, 10. I usually find twice the amount is the desired look that I want. So all these lines of code are just basically adding spacing for us. And of course, that nice little box background. We'll save it. We'll jump back in, let it refresh. And it looks like I'm not ending my box correctly. What are we doing here? And it's because we have begin vertical. This should have been my end. Jump back in. There we go. So we have that nice little box around it. Tells us how many we have. We can add more. We can delete. And that's pretty much all I really wanted to show. Let's go ahead and we'll get rid of this as that was from the last example. Of course, we click on it. Updates again. But anyway, that's it. That's basically an introductory to your custom inspector editors. Let me know down below what you think of it. Do you like these? For small little databases or inspector elements, if it's not going into a database, this can be used on any model behavior. So components that you're putting on your game object, you could go ahead and override these and display it any way you want as well. So it's very powerful to learn how to do these things as you start getting into larger projects, especially when you're creating custom classes. This can make it so much easier when you're working with someone else that maybe doesn't really have the programming or at least that technical background that you might have, and you can just create these custom editors that allows them to add stuff very easily. But anyway, thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. So if you like the video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. It really does help me out here on YouTube. And go ahead and follow me on Twitter. I can be a pretty chatty guy over there when I'm not walking through a forest or being stalked by eagles and falcons, lions, tigers, and bears.